Hello BookTube, my name is Sarah and welcome to my channel. Today I'm coming to you with my February 2018 wrap-up. So, as usual, let's start out with my reading stats for the month. I read a grand total of 20 books this month. That's actually one more book than I read in January. And this was the shortest month, so pretty good. According to my Goodreads goal, I am 9 books ahead of schedule and 20% completed my reading goal for the year. I read 1 2.5-star book, 5 3-star books, 8 3.5-star books, and 6 4-star books. So it was a pretty average, in terms of star rating, reading month for me. Nothing, no 5-star, nothing that blew me out of the water, and only one book that I really didn't care for that much. I read 9 contemporary romance novels, 5 romantic suspense, 3 historical romance Regency novels, 1 cozy mystery, 1 paranormal romance, and 1 erotica novel. All the books I read this month were adult, and as usual, when I say adult, I mean in terms of the audience that the book is geared towards, not YA or middle grade or what have you. I read 2 books that were published in the 2000s, 17 that were published between 2010 and 2017, and 1 book that was published in 2018. I read 10 audiobooks and 10 ebooks. 19 novels and 1 novella, 19 books that were part of a series, and 1 book that was a standalone. Of those series books, 8 of them were series that I started, and 11 were part of ongoing series, which is a good thing. Grand total of 5,393 pages, and that works out to approximately 192 pages a day. Not too shabby. So, how am I doing on all my challenges? For the RRC February Monthly Challenge, I completed it 10 out of 10. For the RRC Stacking the Series Challenge, I have 0 of the 10 levels complete, but I have read 8 out of the 55 books. For the A Million More Pages What to Read in 2018, I've completed 1 out of the 25 tasks and read 7 out of the 42 books. The Where Are You Reading Challenge for the RRC, which is to read a book from every state. I have finished 16 out of the 51 states. The extra state is Washington, D.C., and I did find a book for that one. That was great. For the A Million More Pages for the Fairy Tale Challenge that's going on for 5 months, the sampler, I've got 16 out of 24 challenges complete. And for the Fairy Tale Spell Out, I still haven't completed any words, but I'm getting close on a lot of them. Luckily, that challenge lasts till June, the end of June, I think, so I still have lots of time on that one. So let's go through all the books that I read this month. Like I said, there are 20 of them, so as I did in January, I was really pleased with how this went. I'm not going to talk a lot about each of these books, and as usual, I do talk about them in order from my least favorite to my most favorite. If you want any more information on my thoughts on these books, I meant to do it last month, but I forgot, but this month I will definitely do so. In the description box below, I will leave links to all of my weekly reads videos that talk about these books. So if you're interested, you can go ahead and just click on one of them if you want to hear some more. So, for the first book, my lowest star rating of the month, Marriage Made in Shame by Sophia James. I only gave this book 2.5 stars. It is book number 2 in the Penniless Lord series. This book just didn't mesh well with me. There was nothing wrong with it. I think it actually has quite good ratings on Goodreads. It just wasn't my cup of tea. I found that there were a lot of characters and tended to be very confusing at the beginning. So yeah, not a favorite, but I did enjoy the first book, and like I said in my review of this, or my thoughts on this, is that I do plan to absolutely continue with the series. The next book that I finished was, Royally Raised by, or the next book in this list is Royally Raised by Emma Chase. I gave this book 3 stars. It's book 2.5 in the Royally series. This is a novella. A very short novella. It's only 36 pages long. And again, as I said in my review for this, it just read to me like a second epilogue, and I really didn't see the point in it. It was okay, but it wasn't great. I think it's setting up for a spin-off series, but I really, really did not like the main character, so that's why it got a low star rating. Next up is Duty Bound Guardian by Terri Reid. I gave this book 3 stars. It is book number 2 in the Capital Canine Unit series. This one was well written. I liked the characters, but the main female, Lana, I think her name was, I didn't get her motivation with dealing with her nephew. She just found out that she had a nephew after her sister was killed, or died or what have you. They don't know if it was a suicide or a murder. And she's trying to get custody of the little boy, but she refuses to meet with him because she might get too attached. And I just didn't get the motivation, so yeah, I didn't love that one. Next up was A Valentine for the Cowboy by Rebecca Winters. This is book number 1 in the Sapphire Mountain Cowboy series. I gave this book 3 stars as well. This was a cute story. I enjoyed it. It was an average, 3 stars, as I've said before, said many times. 3 stars is an average rating for me. It means I enjoyed the book. And, it was a good read, but it's not something I'm telling people you need to go out and read this. So, yeah, it was a cute little contemporary romance about a single mom, and I really enjoyed it. No, wait, it's not a single mom. It was a single dad. It was about a single dad, so that was cute. The next book was Law and Disorder by Heather Graham. I gave this book 3 stars. Book number 1 in the Finnegan Connection. Not one of my favorite Heather Grahams, but it was enjoyable. Again, 3 stars, average read. If you like Heather Graham, check it out. If you like romantic suspense type novels, definitely give it a try. The next one is One More Kiss by Samantha Chase. I gave this book 3 stars. It's book number 1 in the Band on the Run series. It was narrated on audio by Christopher Kipanek and Julia McCoya, I believe is how you say her last name. This was a cute story. It's a spin-off series, I believe, from another series that Samantha Chase has written. I didn't exceptionally love the female lead, Vivian. I thought that, she's actually supposed to be younger than the male lead, and she acted so much older and so much more superior to him. The way she came across, yeah, I don't know. I didn't like her as much, and that's why it got a lower star rating. The next book is Cowboy Behind the Badge by Delores Fossen. I gave this book 3.5 stars. Book number 2 in the Sweetwater Ranch series. This was a really good read. I enjoyed it a lot. There was a lot of action. This series tends to have a lot of characters in it, and you sometimes often get confused with who is who, and at least I do, just because there are so many characters, and unless you read these back to back to back, it's hard to keep track of who is who, I find sometimes. It would be actually really nice if at the beginning of the book they kind of had a little character description thing, like so-and-so is so-and-so's brother or what have you. So yeah, but still, really, really good action book, and I really enjoyed it. Next up was Sisters in Love by Melissa Foster. I gave this 3.5 stars. It's book number 1 in the Love and Bloom series, and it was narrated on audio by B.J. Harrison. This is a good story. It wasn't as adult as I thought it was going to be. It was a good story about a woman who is a therapist, and he just suffered a great loss, and he kind of goes to see her with getting therapy for this loss that he suffered, and the two of them spark up a relationship. But of course she knows that, her ethics and things like that. It was a good book. I enjoyed it. Although I will say, and I said this in my my thoughts on it as well in my weekly reads, that the narration on this was not very good, and I would not recommend this one on audio. I'm going to continue with the series on audio because it is free if you have the Audible Romance package. And hey, if I don't have to pay for getting it to listen to, I will, or I won't pay, I guess. Let's put it this way, I wouldn't pay for the narration, but because it's free, I will listen to it. The next book is A Soldier's Valentine by Jenna Mindel. I gave this book 3.5 stars, and it is book number 2 in the Maple Springs series. This is a love-inspired romance, so it's a Christian romance novel. It was very, very sweet. I really liked both the main characters. He is a war veteran who's suffering from some PTSD, and they kind of own little shops in this little town next to each other, and of course a romance sparks up from there. It was really cute, and I really enjoyed this one. The next one is Easy Love by Kristen Proby. I gave it 3.5 stars. It is the first book, in the Bordeaux series. It was narrated on audio by Sebastian York and Rachel Foglini, I think is how you say her last name. This one was really good. It took place in New Orleans, and it's essentially the series centers around a family. This is the one brother's story, and someone is stealing from their company, so they hire this woman to come in to kind of infiltrate, for lack of a better word. She kind of gets hired on by the firm and, becomes an employee, and then tries to find who's stealing from the company. And of course, her and the boss develop a relationship. There are a lot of sexy times in this book, but it was really good, and I really enjoyed it. Next up is Blueberry Muffin Murder by Joanne Fluke. I gave this book 3.5 stars. It's book number 3 in the Hannah Swenson series, and it was narrated on audio by Suzanne Torin. I enjoyed this one quite a bit. I'm actually reading the next book in the series right now, and, you know, I think to myself, I enjoyed this series. It's a cute enough series. And then I'll start reading one of the books and go, yes, I really like this series, and I really do. It's very sweet. It's very tame. You know, it's, I don't even know how to describe, these are not, I mean, this is a cozy mystery. These are not gritty, scary mysteries. These are really fun, really cute, really lighthearted. And, you know, there's recipes in these books, which is absolutely fantastic. I love when I get to the end of a chapter and go, ooh, recipe. And I, you know, like, screenshot, because I read on my e-reader, I screenshot the ones that I really like, and I'm going to save them. And, you know, I think they actually put out a cookbook of the recipes that were in these books, which is kind of fun. But yeah, Blueberry Muffin Murder, this is a great little series, and, you know, I absolutely recommend it. I wasn't an absolute fan of the audio, but I enjoyed it. The next book is Offlimits by Clare Connelly. I gave this book 3.5 stars. This is one of the first books in the new Harlequin Dare line, which is their take on an erotic romance. This was a boss and employee relationship kind of idea. And in my wrap-up of this book, I talked about the fact that it was dark. And I had a viewer ask me if that meant violent. And I just wanted to clarify that no, when I say dark, I don't mean violence. I mean, it wasn't a light, fluffy kind of read. It had a lot of darker undertones to it. It's very hard to describe, but I think some of you who may have read these kind of books might understand what I'm talking about. There was nothing to do with violence. It just didn't have that light feeling like I get from a lot of other romance novels. The next book is Lawman Protection by Cindy Meyer. I gave this book 3.5 stars. It is book number 2, book number 2 in the Ranger Brigade series. This is another Harlequin intrigue novel and another one that's a part of a series. As I said, the second book in the series. I believe this is a 6-book mini-series, and you know, there's certain events that kind of overarch throughout the entire series. These are really great books, lots of action. I do believe, though, each of the books in this Ranger Brigade series are written by different authors. The Sweetwater Ranch series, they're all written by Delores Fossen, whereas these ones are different authors, and I'm really enjoying them. This one had a lot of action. I really liked the characters. There was a little bit of insta-love in it, or maybe insta-lust, but it was still a really good story, and I really do recommend them. The next one is Stolen Fury by Elizabeth Naughton. I gave this book 3.5 stars. First book in the Stolen series. It was narrated on audio by Elizabeth Wiley. This was a really great book about antique artifacts that get stolen, and this story jumps around. They say in the description on Goodreads, and I highly agree with it. If you like, you know, Raiders of the Lost Ark meets Romancing the Stone, you'll like this book, and I really did. There are some there is a lot of adult content in this book, but there's also a lot of action in this book, and it was really good, and I'm very much looking forward to continuing on with this series. The next book is The Hidden by Heather Graham. I gave this book 4 stars. It's book number 17 in the Crew of Hunters series, and it was narrated on audio by Phil Giante. I love this one. This is one of my more recent favorites in the Crew of Hunters series. It takes place in Estes, Colorado, not far from where The Shining, where Stephen King got the inspiration for The Shining, from that hotel. And, you know, it's about, you know, of course there's ghosts and supernatural elements, and about the first settlers in that part of Colorado, a woman who works at a museum showing off some of the things from one of the original homesteads. Really good book. Highly enjoyed it. Next up is Rock Hard by Nalini Singh. I don't know why I always stumble over her name. I gave this book 4 stars, and it's book number 2 in the Rock Kiss series. This was narrated on audio by Justine O'Keefe. This was a really great story about, another story about a boss and one of the women that, or a woman that works with him. She has some very, very difficult, a very difficult backstory, abuse at the hands of a former boyfriend, and she's trying to kind of get over that, and she's a little afraid of him. He's a former rugby player who kind of got injured and can no longer play, but he was very, very famous within his scope of the game, almost like a David Beckham for soccer, or, you know, back in the day a Tiger Woods for golf. You know, like very famous, young, made all this money, but now he can no longer play, and he buys companies and then essentially gets them back on their feet. Like, he buys companies that are going to go bankrupt and then flips them, you know, essentially, and then, you know, goes on his merry way, and he meets her, and very, very steamy, but very well done too, considering what she went through. It was treated with the utmost caution and care, and I really, really enjoyed this one. The next one is The Study of Seduction by Sabrina Jeffries. This is book number 2 in the Sinful Suitors series, and it was narrated on audio by Beverly A. Crick. I am really enjoying this series. It is a really, really good one. This one, you know, kind of makes you laugh, and it's also very steamy. You know, really, really fun series with some really great characters, and the narration on this one is just absolutely fantastic. Next up, About a Dog by Jenna McKinley. I gave this book 4 stars. It is book number 1 in the Bluff Point series, and it was narrated on audio by Allison Ryan. This is the kind of book that I want all my contemporary romance novels to be like. It has all of the elements that make me so happy. Takes place in a small town, in the summertime. It features, you know, lovable characters, like the main female lead and the male lead were both fantastic. It features a puppy. You can't say no to a puppy. You know, it's almost like all the perfect things that I love in contemporary romance are kind of mushed into one book, and I love this one so, so much. You know, it's almost like a second chance romance in a way, because they knew each other when they were younger, and they kind of had a little bit of a fling, and then she left for certain reasons, left town, and now she's back for her best friend's wedding, and, you know, things go from there. So, you know, absolutely love this one. I so recommend this series. I am really looking forward to reading the rest of them. Next one is The Valentines Quest, The Valentine Quest by Melissa McClone. I gave this book 4 stars, and it is book number 5 in the Love at the Chocolate Shop series. I cannot recommend this series enough. If you like really sweet contemporary romances, there is no adult content in these books at all. There might have been mentions of a love scene in like the first or second book, but you're never physically, like, you're not there. They don't do anything in any graphic detail or any detail at all. It's more alluded to that that's what actually happened. But these books are absolutely fantastic. They take place in a small town in Montana, and it's so nice because each one falls in a different month. So it starts in, I believe, October. So October, November, December, January. So I've just read February's, and it's really fun to watch the town as you go through the seasons and go through the year. So you don't have to read these in any kind of order, but I think to really get the magic out of these books, it's really nice to do that, because you kind of get to see the characters you met in previous books, and this one is really cute. It's about the chocolate shop decides to host this thing called the Valentines Quest, where it's almost like a giant scavenger hunt around town over a couple-week period, and these two single people get paired up together, and of course romance ensues. Really adorable. Highly recommend this series. And last but not least, my very favorite book of the month, and I read this one way at the beginning of the month, and still, now that I'm thinking about it, it's still my favorite book, was Romancing the Duke by Tessa Dare. I gave this book 4 stars. It is book number 1 in the Castles Ever After series, and it was narrated on audio by Carmen Rose. This was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, sort of. The main female lead is left penniless after her father's death, and she gets a note saying that she has an inheritance from someone and to come to this castle. So she uses her last little bit of money to get to this castle to find out that she has gotten this castle and an inheritance. And the problem is that there's a duke currently living in the castle, and he has no idea that the castle has been sold out from under him. He suffered an accident. He's got some scarring. He is blind, mostly blind, I believe. And, you know, their relationship kind of goes from there. There are some great, funny scenes in this book that deal with like a live action role playing kind of thing, like, you know, almost like a medieval times, you know, where people get dressed up as knights and ladies of the round table, and they have jousting tournaments. And I mean, even though this is Regency England, you know, they still do that kind of, it was just, guys, it was so much fun. This was also my first Tessa Dare novel, and I am now a fan and do definitely plan on picking up more of her books. So anyway, guys, that is it for this wrap-up. I do hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments below what your favorite book that you read in February was, or if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them. And until my next video, guys, take care and happy reading. Bye.